Good afternoon. My name is Molly Zimmerman. I'm the Associate Director at the New York State Science and Technology Law Center. We are a NYS sponsored organization, and we are delighted today to have Marcie Sonneborn from the Central New York Technology Development Organization here with us to present on SBIR and STTR funding issues and case studies. And without further ado, we'll turn it over to Marcie. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Molly. All right. Good afternoon, and welcome to the SBIR SSTR webcast. Today I'm going to go through a number of topics. First is going to be a little bit about the SBIR outreach program, which is run through the Central New York Technology Development Organization. The SBIR outreach activities in New York State are also funded in addition to the Science and Law Technology Center. They also fund 10 regional technology development centers and 15 centers for advanced technology across the state. There are 3 SBIR outreach centers in the state. Western New York covers Buffalo and Rochester. The New York City and Downstate Center covers the Mid-Hudson area and the city, and I cover Central New York, and that is 35 counties in the center of New York State. Just a couple of our objectives before we start is to increase the number of SBIR projects in the region, and also the individuals who know about SBIR and who possibly would be able to benefit from participation in the program. We provide outreach to small businesses throughout the region, and assist companies in applying for awards, and that can include phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 assistance. At the phase 1 level, typically it's what's the program about, what are the agencies that fund the various topics that you might be interested in, as well as how to contact your federal agency representatives. Phase 2 is typically about writing a commercialization plan and how to move your technology into the commercial market. And phase 3 is how to make contact with prime contractors and other individuals who might be interested in purchasing your technology or in purchasing the products that are the product of your project. Objectives for today's program. I'm going to provide you some information about what are the SBIR and STTR programs, and why might you be interested as a researcher or someone who works with individuals who are interested in developing research. I'm going to talk a little bit about how the program operates, how to access the programs, and some strategies for how to apply, and then who to call when you're preparing to write your proposal. The history of the SBIR program. The program started in 1982 officially. Before that, there was a pilot project that was operating, and in my case study that I'm going to talk about at the end, that company in fact was the recipient of one of those pilot project programs. In 1986, the program was reauthorized again, so that was a 4-year reauthorization. In 1992, again, Congress extended the program, and at that point, prior to that, it was only SBIR, and I will explain those as we go through. But the STTR program was added in 1992. SBIR is the company applies. The company applies actually to both SBIR and STTR, but in STTR there is an official partnership with a university or a research institution. In 2000, again, the program was renewed, and that was an 8-year reauthorization. And that right now the program is up for renewal, and I will talk about that as well and how that may be affecting some of the things that I'm talking to you about today. Now, one of the things that we do know about reauthorization is that the program will not go away. However, it's going to change quite a bit from the way it has looked in the past. And so there are a number of issues that are coming up, so stay tuned. The program is a dynamic program, and there are always changes that are taking place in response to Congress and in response to emergencies and in things that happen within our environment as well as within companies. The reauthorization right now is on its 7th continuing resolution, and as of July 31st, we will see if we have a program that's been reauthorized or if we go to another continuing resolution. There are a tremendous number of changes that are under discussion right now. And also, a lot of the program managers have changed over. At each point of reauthorization, the program changes in response to Congress, but also in response to individuals who are using the program, listening to people who have been SBIR awardees in the past. Therefore, the culture is likely to change in each of the agencies. There are 11 federal agencies that participate in the program, and each one has different objectives, different topics, and different philosophies, as well as different cultures and priorities. Reauthorization issues, some of which are unknown at this point, is at what level are venture capitalists able to participate in the program? This is primarily an issue for the National Institute of Health. However, some of the other agencies may also have venture capital participation in those projects. Phase 1 to phase 2, right now, you are required to apply for phase 1 first, which is a scientific and technical feasibility phase, and into phase 2. However, there is a discussion about, can a company start with phase 2, which is taking it from we know it's feasible into the point of commercialization, which often can be the existence of a prototype already or moving into a prototype. Also, the length of term for reauthorization is up for discussion. The House and the Senate have different opinions on that. The Senate would like to reauthorize it for 14 years, and the House would like to reauthorize it for only 2 years, giving them an opportunity to lobby further for more venture capital participation. So there are a number of issues that are yet to be determined. SBIR and STTR is federal research and development funding. The purpose is to conduct research leading to products, services, or processes that can go into the commercial market. And that can be done either through grants or contracts. In a grant, the organization will put out a broad general topic, or the agency puts out a broad general topic, and the individual can determine what area or what aspect of that topic they wish to, or you wish to develop. Under a contract, it's one of the agencies that typically has federal laboratories or has missions that are out in the field, such as the Department of Defense that has armed forces all over the world. And they have needs in the field, and so therefore the topics are what is needed in the field by that agency and by all of the missions that they work with. The amounts that are available to a company over an approximate 3-year period is from about $500,000 to $1.5 million for each company. Yes, Molly?
What are the implications of VC participation in SBIR?
The implications for SBIR participation, for venture capital participation in SBIR are, right now, companies have to be owned by an individual or individuals. And so, therefore, without VC participation, we're looking at pre-feasibility ideas. Venture capitalists typically are a bit risk averse, and they do not enter into investments in such companies until after the feasibility's been proven. So it means that some of the ideas that are being funded through SBIR and STTR will be less innovative than they have been in the past and carry more risk with them. This program, it looks at high risk, high reward potential. And so with VCs entering, it's going to be nearer to commercialization if those programs are funded, but also venture capitalists can provide resources to small companies to make them appear much more professional. And so therefore, small 1- and 2-person companies may not have the same opportunity as a company that has venture capital interest already involved. All right. It also means that possibly there will be fewer grants given, especially at the phase 1 level, and only because venture capitalists will they will lobby for some of the larger awards and possibly not starting at a phase 1 level. So SBIR, Small Business Innovation Research. Small, fewer than 500 employees. Business, at the time of the award, when you sign to receive the award, the funding, You must be a company at that stage, but do not have to be a company and have an official organizational status before then. Innovation must be true innovation, not existing already. This is something that is typically high risk. And if you look at the amounts of money that we're talking about $1.5 million and up, think about do you have a project that requires approximately $1.5 or $2 million to develop in the R&D, because these are truly R&D projects. It does not cover marketing and will not cover, even in the indirect costs, the costs for filing patents. However, legal expenses can be included in the indirect costs for the patent applications. The STTR, Small Business Technology Transfer Program, again, is a partnership between a university or research center and a small business, and it is basically using the small business to pull the technology out of the university and get it into the commercial market. So why should you be interested? If you have an idea or a concept for a technology or a product that is truly an innovation, and that idea or concept has no form to it yet, you may not have a company, but you have what you think is a good idea that may have a good market with a large potential return on investment, then you should think about the SBIR program. Also, if you don't even know if your idea is feasible or not, because due to the science and technical development or lack of development in that area, and also lack of development into a product or into a service, into a useful function for a company to be able to apply, then you might think about, can I improve, by applying my technology, can I improve conditions in medicine, agriculture, aerospace, military, or homeland security, or some of the other areas where the federal government funds the SBIR projects. Another reason why you might want to be interested in SBIR or STTR is if you are working at a university in a research laboratory, or you are with a company and there is some intellectual property that you have observed or some projects that the company is not commercializing. You may want to take that innovation into the commercial market yourself if you have the capabilities and would be able to generate the resources to be able to, and the knowledge to be able to put together a project. Grants and contracts, these are not loans or equity. You do not have to pay them back, and you do not have anyone taking an equity stake in your company to receive this money. So it is truly for early stage innovation, and it is probably the best bargain in federal government resources at this point. You also, if you go through a contract agency such as Department of Defense or NASA, and you go through a phase 1 and a phase 2, and then those agencies can also give you a phase 3 because they want to implement your technology into their organization or into the field, then you have a sole source marketing position with those products. And so therefore, you have a ready-made customer base, and you no longer have to go through a competitive bidding process. If you sell your company or sell the product to a larger corporation, such as a prime contractor, then that sole source marketing position does transfer with the technology, which increases the valuation of the technology and or also the company itself. Also with SBIR, most of the agencies have some type of phase 3 assistance. And so through that assistance, you may be invited to special programs and events for business planning, for commercialization assistance, but also matchmaking events with venture capitalists who are interested in that agency's technologies. Now, the program is treated as federal procurement, so it is subject to the FAR, or the Federal Acquisition Regulations. That means that there are program announcements, solicitations, schedules that have to be followed. But it also includes your having to do written proposals that get reviewed by review panels, and when your project is funded, after you get into the project a bit, you might be subject to a DCAA audit or Defense Contracting Administration audit. Excuse me. Now, what is the purpose of SBIR and STTR? First, it's to increase the technological innovation in the country and to make U.S. businesses stronger, more stable, and enable small businesses to meet federal research and development needs. The federal government is also interested in increasing the commercialization of products and services from the federal R&D assistance and taking some of the technologies out of university laboratories and applying them out in the commercial market. Now, some of the things that SBIR and STTR fund, including scientific breakthroughs and finding ways to exploit them through products and services, looking at emerging technologies and potential applications in the commercial market, taking existing technologies and using them in new ways. You may be able to use a military technology and apply it to the medical field, or vice versa. Also, major improvements to existing technologies, new features, new capabilities, producing it at the nanoscale or using nanomaterials. Those kinds of things can help to improve existing technologies that we already have in the market. There are three phases of SBIR. Phase 1 is the scientific and technical feasibility phase. That is 6 months for all 11 agencies that participate. And just recently, the amount for maximum for those awards moved from $100,000 for the 6-month period to $150,000. In phase 2, that is taking it from the point of, yes, we know it's feasible, and developing the concept further, generally leading up to a prototype at the end of 2 years. The amount of money that's available to companies at the phase 2 level is $1 million or more. However, that becomes a floor for agencies such as the National Institutes of Health, because I have heard that some of their phase 2s can be up to $6, $7, and $8 million for the 2-year period. Phase 3 is a non-SBIR funded phase. Now, what that means is the SBIR funding comes through is required by Congress as 2.5% of the external R&D funding and external grants and contracts to outside organizations, and the 2.5% must be put into an SBIR pool of funding to be spent through this program and through these requirements. Phase 3, if you have a contract agency that you've been working with that needs the technology, you can receive a phase 3 contract to commercialize the technology within their mission. You can also put your technology into a phase 3 by selling it out in the commercial market. All companies are expected to move their technology from pre-feasibility into the commercial market ultimately. STTR. Now, STTR is a cooperative research and development project between a small business and a research institution. It's a joint venture. The small business must make the application for the project. However, for STTR, there is required, it's a 1-year phase 1 instead of 6 months. Awards are right now are only $100,000, not $150,000 yet, and for up to 1 year, because it takes longer for two organizations and the culture, two different cultures, to start working together and developing the science and the technology. The awards for phase 2 are $750,000, so they have not been raised to the $1 million level, and this is for 2 years. Requirement for STTR projects is that there be an agreement for allocation of rights between the company and the research organization. And again, phase 3 is a non-STTR funded program to move from the lab to the market. Agencies that are required to participate in the SBIR program are those federal agencies that give in extramural grants and contracts more than $1 billion per year, and 0.3% of this funding goes into the STTR pool. Now, this is just a general model of SBIR STTR, moving from phase 1 feasibility into taking it from phase 1 into phase 2, going from research into approximately a prototype, and then moving that prototype or that development into phase 3, which is product development into the commercial market. The objective is to make rich taxpayers, rich CEOs, rich owners of companies and investors, and then putting those taxes back into the federal government, and then recycle the funding in that way. Also to make U.S. stronger, more competitive in its technology and its products. Now, some of the differences, SBIR and STTR. SBIR has 11 participating agencies. Those are the agencies that have more than $100 million in extramural R&D, and 2/3 of the phase 1 funding, so 2/3 of the $150,000 must be spent by the company inside the company for labor, establishing supplier relationships, and on things building up the base of the business and the sustainability of the business. 1/3 can be spent on outside consultants or resources, but the whole $150,000 can be spent entirely within the organization. But the 1/3 that can be spent on outside consultants can also purchase resources at universities. SBIR, as I said before, is 2.5% of the agency's external R&D budget. STTR has 5 agencies participating, and the company must perform at least 40% of the work. So 40% of the $100,000 must be spent internal to the company. The research institution must get a minimum of 30%, and the other 30% can go to either partner or even to a third university, a third researcher, or outside consultant. I mentioned before the allocation of rights agreements, and that the phase 1 is up to 1 year. The topics for STTR may be different than SBIR, and so it's important to, even if you are working with an SBIR topic through an agency, it's important to also look at their STTR site or look to see if they have an STTR program. Yes, Molly?
Can you discuss what is contained in the allocation of rights agreements?
Typically, the allocation of rights agreements include who has rights to the intellectual property, are there royalties to be paid, who has manufacturing rights, and generally how those are divided up between the organizations. What the federal agencies don't want to happen is to develop the technology and then to have a fight between the 2 institutions or the 2 organizations that own the technology. And so therefore all of that needs to be discussed in advance, and at the point when you are submitting your proposal, your phase 1 proposal, you are supposed to have that agreement signed and in place, but you do not have to submit that with your phase 1. Okay, the agencies offering SBIR and STTR awards are listed on your sheet. Department of Defense is the largest agency of all of them. Each year, this year, there is approximately $2.2 billion in funding for the SBIR program, and 50% of that will come through the Department of Defense. And just because it says defense in its name doesn't mean that it doesn't fund medical products or other kinds of things. So even if you have a National Institutes of Health proposal, definitely look at the Department of Defense and determine whether or not you might be able to apply for some of their funding. Is that a question?
It is. It's going back to the allocation of rights agreement. Does the allocation of rights in an STTR discuss the rights retained in inventions?
Yes. Now, there are model agreements out on the internet through some of the websites for some of the agencies.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Okay, go ahead.
In inventions and patents, by the federal government?
Okay, the allocation of rights agreement is between the two parties to the SBIR program. If there are patents or other intellectual property that is owned by the government, that is expected to be agreed upon between the government and either of the parties, whoever has rights to develop it.
Upfront as well, along with between the university and the developer?
Yes, the intellectual property rights should be very clear before you get it, before you submit your SBIR proposal. Who owns the technology? All right. The government, however, does not have to be a party to the allocation of rights agreement, but it's expected that that has been taken care of and agreed upon. All right, I will proceed further, but there are 5 agencies. As you can see in yellow, it says also STTR. It's Department of Defense, National Institutes of Health, NASA, the National Science Foundation, and also the Department of Energy, that are the 5 largest agencies that also have STTR programs. This is a list of approximate amounts by agency, and as you can see, Department of Defense each year has approximately $1 billion in SBIRs. NIH has approximately $574 million that they distribute through SBIRs. Now this is strictly the SBIR program that we're talking about, but STTR, if you take the 5 largest companies, it is also in proportion to their split of the funding that you see on this chart. Department of Agriculture is a small agency. Department of Education is also very small. Some of the agencies do not fund the full $150,000 so that they are able to distribute more phase 1s to more companies, at least at the phase 1 level. Eligibility for SBIR is that the company must be American-owned and right now independently operated, and so that's where the venture capital issue may come in the future and change this requirement. It must be a for-profit business with fewer than 500 employees, and the Small Business Administration and Congress says they must not be dominant in the proposed field of operation. You could be a small business and be a Microsoft in the making, but you don't want to talk about that in your proposal. You don't want to say, we are the only company that is in this industry and we are dominant in our field, because that will knock you out of eligibility for this program. The principal investigator for the SBIR must be 50% on the payroll of the company when the SBIR is signed to be accepted. In the case of STTR, the principal investigator can come from the research institution, and so therefore does not need to be on the payroll of the company. Now, the PI must be employed by the business, but that does not mean that the PI has to be employed by the grant for 50% of their time. Many principal investigators will be 10% on one grant, 15% on another grant, and however, a PI cannot have more than 100% of his or her time allocated to SBIRs plus jobs or other professional commitments. Research space must be available under the control of the SBIR grantee for the company's proposed project. That means if a company is incubating within a university setting, in a university laboratory, all of the professionals who work under the grant must be able to have access 24/7, 365 days a year, access to that facility so that they can carry on the activities of the project. For STTR, the company also must be American-owned, independently operated, for-profit, and the company size is limited to 500 employees. However, the not-for-profit research institution, there is no requirement other than that it must be in the United States. This is a release. This is a schedule of all of the SBIR solicitations for the year. It gives you a general sense of what time of year each agency opens its solicitations. The release date is when the topics become official. Before that date, they may just be under discussion by the agency. Closing dates, and also after the release date, then companies can start submitting their proposal to the agency. The closing date is the deadline date. National Institutes of Health has 3 deadlines: April 5th, August 5th, and December 5th. And some of the other agencies may have more than one solicitation, such as Department of Defense and also National Science Foundation. So you might want to check this calendar for timing. Also, if you are ready to write a proposal right now, set out your SBIR strategies and look to see if there's something that's opening soon. You may want to focus on that early on and decide that you're going to start that way, or target the dates when the agency is opening its solicitation so that you're ready when the solicitation does become available. Now, how does one apply for an SBIR? First, identify topics. What are all of the different agencies that are interested in funding that type of technology? Who are the agencies and who are the individuals at those agencies? Each agency has an SBIR program manager, which should be the first phone call that you make to talk to them about the topics and to find out if there's any additional information that might benefit you while you are writing your SBIR. For example, Department of Defense occasionally will have other reports that the program managers know about, or there may be additional information about the technology. Yes, Molly?
Can you apply for multiple agency SBIRs?
The same topic? The same topic, yes. However, you do have to let all of the agencies know that you have applied to other agencies. Each agency has its own forms that it uses, its own philosophies, and its own requirements. And so you have to read the solicitation very carefully. You cannot just take a proposal from Homeland Security and send it into the Department of Defense and have it be relevant. And so you have to be very careful, and you have to rewrite the proposal to some extent. They also may have different budgetary requirements and may want the information in a slightly different way. Follow the format, follow the solicitation obsessively. When you prepare the proposal, make sure you've read the guidelines. What are they looking for? And do not ask for more money than they say that they will allocate. However, there are some agencies that if you call them in advance, you can possibly get approval to request more money, such as through the National Institutes of Health. You prepare the proposal, you send it in, it goes through a proposal review. Following up, typically companies are asked to not call the federal agency until they receive a notice. When you receive the notice and you find out, yes, we received a grant, or no, we did not receive it, if you receive it, then you are going to be moving on to budget negotiation. And so you will need to follow up and possibly provide information about how you determined the costs that you put into your proposal. And if you did not receive the grant, you want to make sure that you receive the critique from the review panel. And so that may require follow-up. But also you want to find out if the agency is willing to take a revision of the proposal. In the past, NIH has been willing to take up to 3 revisions, and they are going to be cutting that back so that if a phase 1 is rejected by the NIH, NIH will only take 1 more revision, and then resubmit on the next date. Yes.
We have an inquiry about what you do to assist people who want to apply for SBIRs.
All right. It's a bit early, but what I do is take a phone call and answer all of your questions, and I will call up the federal agency and talk to them, and I'll find out the answer for you. I can also do proposal reviews at no charge for companies. In some cases, I have sat down with the team and help them to strategize about SBIRs, about approaching the different agencies, in some cases how to write a proposal if they don't know how to do that. In other cases, it may include contacting a Center for Advanced Technology. It might also include trying to identify potential partners. So all of those kinds of things, call and ask. We do not charge for our services for SBIR assistance.
Is that at the Central New York Technology Development Organization? And
Yes.
Is that information on the website here?
It is,
On your
the
PowerPoint?
very last PowerPoint has contact information.
Great.
All right, how do I apply? Look up on the, there are a couple of websites, and those are also listed toward the back, but www.sbir.gov has links to the SBIR information sites, also the solicitation schedule for each agency and the STTR solicitation schedule. So sbirworld.com, actually that's now www.sbir.gov. Okay, how to apply. Pre-solicitation announcements. The only agency that really has an official pre-solicitation announcement is the Department of Defense, and that opens up 6 weeks before the official release date. There is a site, and I have mentioned it later in the slides, but it's called CITES, and a company can go into the CITES website, read the solicitation or the pre-solicitation that's out there, and call up and speak with the program manager. Now, typically the program manager at Department of Defense is the person who has the problem in the federal agency. And so that call should be made early on, and if it happens before the release date, then there can be a conversation that is private between the project manager and the company. After the solicitation opens, any questions have to be submitted to the federal agency, and then they get answered on the website, so all of the applicants for that topic can see the answer to that. Guidelines, make sure that you pay attention to the requirements, the technical and the personnel requirements. What are the awards? How much are the awards? How do you submit the proposal? What are the topics? What's the outline they want to see? The solicitation also has the forms and all of the budget guidelines as well. General Phase 1 proposal outline, as you can see, includes cover pages, which is in the boilerplate that is provided by the agency, significance of the problem or opportunity, technical objectives, your work plan, what is your capability? Have you had related work before? What is the relationship of this with future R&D you may be doing in your company? Who are your key personnel, and all of the other information, your cost proposal and such. How do I apply? Contact each agency and treat each agency as a customer. Get to know what they are looking for in the SBIR program. Before you start to write, you might think about a technology or product development plan and what you want to do over the long term. Even in your Phase 1, you should tell the federal agency, in Phase 1, this is what we are hoping to achieve. In Phase 2, we will take it from feasibility to prototype, and in Phase 3, this is how we will move it into the commercial market. And you can do that in about 2 or 3 sentences so that the federal agency has an idea about how you intend to develop your technology. You should also think about intellectual property issues. Who owns the intellectual property you're going to be using? How will you ultimately produce it or manufacture it? Quality assurance issues or having to do with quality control issues when you're in production, or if you're involved with the National Institutes of Health, FDA approvals, clinical trials if that's required, or product testing, but also partnerships and strategic alliances. Who is going to work with you on this, and who already has a foothold in the market that you may want to contact to be your partner to take it into the commercial market. Before you start to write, define your specific aims for the grant. Think about why the agency has listed the product in their solicitation, and also think about what is the life cycle of the technology development that we will approach in this program. Homework, search the literature, know what is the state of the art, what are existing patents that are out there, who's doing work in this area, and how are you different in what you are trying to do? How is yours truly innovative? Work with your team, brainstorm, work with universities that have expertise in your field, and make sure that you have a clear understanding about what's happening at the research level in universities as well as out in the commercial market. Have a tight focus on the project. Does the topic fit what you are trying to do in your company? Does it fit your strategic objectives? Identify the project's theme. What is the agency interested in seeing as a result of your project? Also, when the release period has opened, for some of the, especially the contract agencies, you cannot talk to some of the SBIR program managers. So think about, if there's not an open solicitation, that is the off-season for that agency, and it's a good time to call up the agency and talk to them about some of the things, the expectations that they have for that topic. Prepare your phase 1 proposal. These phase 1s are no more than 25 pages for a phase 1, including all of the boilerplate. But right now, most everything is going through grants.gov or one of the other electronic submission sites. And so the page sections are limited by each section. However, the National Institutes of Health has reduced its technical section from 15 pages, 12 to 15 pages, down to 6. And so a lot of the agencies are looking at how to reduce the burden on their reviewers. So read very carefully in the solicitation about how many pages you have for each section, but also pay attention to font size and anything having to do with graphics, the size of the graphics, and how they want to see the information. Think about what resources you need, and you're going to be looking for budget and administrative forms. Be aware that you will have to sign up on either grants.gov or you have to do CCR sign up. All of that information is on websites. If you want to apply to the federal government, you have to sign up as a contractor and put in your DUNS number and put a lot of the information about your company so they can attach information, the name of your company, to an official organizational form. Preparing a phase 1 proposal, talk about personnel and facilities, establish your credibility with the consultants that you have on board working with you. What are your plans for phase 2? And again, your budget and the justification for your budget. Who is going to benefit and who will buy should be clearly stated in your commercialization planning. Is it going to enable individuals or agencies or the federal government to reduce costs, to be much more efficient? Will it reduce morbidity and mortality? What are some of the benefits of your specific technology? Here are some useful websites. www.sbir.gov is the main website that has used by all of the federal agencies. However, www.zyn.com/SBIR is another site that has all of the same kinds of information on the 11 federal agencies, but they also have an SBIR Gateway newsletter that I recommend that anyone interested in the SBIR program get onto that mailing list, and it will give you updates on all of the agencies and new trends and activities going on at that level. Here are some other sites. The SBIR schedule, that's where you can find out when all of the 11 federal agencies are releasing their solicitations. Next is the DoD CITES. CITES is the Interactive Topic Information System, and that's where, if you are interested in a DoD project 6 weeks in advance of the release date, you should be talking to them. You should be looking at that site to read their program information. This is the cross-agency website. These are the two sites that I talked about before, but this is a more clear slide with that information. All right, let me just take a breather for a minute. Any questions?
Don't have any currently.
All right, I have chosen 2 case studies. The first is a company that most people have heard of. Symantec is the company that produces and markets Norton Antivirus. And that is a company that started with SBIRs. The other company I chose, a company from Central New York, and I think that it's also familiar to most people who are in the Central New York area, and that's Census Corporation. First, in 1979, I mentioned before the program was officially started as a program, as a federal program, it was still in its pilot phase. The National Science Foundation gave a grant to Dr. Gary Hendricks who was working at Stanford Research Institute. And he had a microcomputer-based natural language processing program. And this program actually resulted in the first personal computer that was able to actually understand English. And so that's its claim to fame. In 1982, the company Symantec was founded by Dr. Hendricks, and he also had a team of visionary scientists with him. There's lots of folklore about how they got started and how they got into the market, but this company was able to develop a few breakthroughs, and it was so successful that they were able to attract some outstanding scientists, and they were also able to get out into the market and talk to many customers and find out what their customers truly wanted, what features and capabilities in their products. And they were able to raise $3.5 million through Kleiner Perkins, and were able to put together a very strong marketing team. Q&A was their first product. Now, if you recall, 1979 was the year that they received their SBIR. 6 years later, their first product was available. So these are true innovations that take a long time to come to the commercial market. This company generated millions of dollars in sales, and the company was able to grow from a small 4-person, 5-person startup into a diversified software firm as a result of some of the early successes. The company actually, if I go back for just a minute, the company's initial success with that one product, Q&A, led to an IPO, initial public offering, of $10.5 million. And then after that, the company had 19 different acquisitions, and the story of those acquisitions, you can find some of that out on the internet now, but the company that has risen from that is called Symantec and Norton Antivirus. Peter Norton was one of the individuals involved in the early development of that. In about 1995, 10 years after Q&A was released, the company had received record sales of $455 million, cumulative sales of about $2 billion, and they had over 2,000 employees. By 2009, so this was approximately November 2009, and the company evolved and now has over 17,000 employees. They have operations in more than 40 countries, and it's one of the world's largest software companies for security, storage, and systems management solutions. So that's one of the biggest stories in SBIR. Now, to take a local case study, Census Corporation was founded in 1985, and it was founded by Judd Gostin. Today, they're a global provider of air defense, air traffic control, radar systems. Radar systems is how they in fact started, but they are also getting into data integration and a variety of other new business units. Judd Gostin was an executive at General Electric in Syracuse, and he left GE and took 6 employees with him that he hired away from General Electric, and they started this company. In fiscal year 86, they received their first SBIR from the Navy, and that was for $49,860. At that time, the maximum for an SBIR phase 1 was $50,000. So now I mentioned it was $150,000, so they were much smaller back then. And it was called Multi-Static Radar Applicability for Small Radar Cross-Section. That company, as you can see, 6 employees at the time. By 1986, between 1986 and 1991, these are the different agencies that funded census: the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and also the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA. The company received a total of about $1 million, just under $1 million at that point. And now if we fast forward to February 2009, Judd, there was an incentive for why is this company involved with innovation. All of these SBIR projects resulted in, or sort of developed into, all of the different products that Census offers today. And he said, if we forestall airport collisions, you can imagine how good that makes people feel, and we do. Our equipment saves lots of lives on airports. We think it will save lots of lives on the battlefield as well. So Census has taken military technologies and moved it into aerospace, and is a company that locally continues to hire people. They have over 700 employees now and are still hiring, and they are in air traffic systems, defense and security systems, and advanced development. So those are just two examples of SBIR. There are many other companies in the community. Most SBIR companies are still privately held, so it's hard to find financial information from them or about them. And so the companies try to stay sort of under the radar and try to continue to develop the business until their competitors begin to learn about them when they start to have breakthroughs. And so sometimes they're hard to find, but I often will talk to companies to be mentors with other companies. So that's another thing that I may be able to assist a company to do, is to find mentors in their field of operation, or even in a different field that may apply. So things to keep in mind is commercial application is required. It's not just taking university technology and continuing to fund it with research and development grants, and that in fact is what used to happen in the early stages of the SBIR. It was just sufficient to have an elegant technology innovation. Return on investment is important. If the government is putting in over $1 million, your return on investment should be $50 million, and the federal agencies want to see large markets and meeting customer need. Economic prosperity for the U.S., hiring people, providing jobs, creating rich taxpayers, but keeping the U.S. globally competitive. Now, no fee is attached to SBIR outreach services at the current time, and NYSTAR funds all of us who are out in the regions to provide SBIR support. And here's my contact information. You can reach me by phone, you can reach me by email, but also it's easy for me to get around this region and sit down and meet with teams. And if you have any questions whatsoever about SBIR, please do not hesitate to call. And I will open this up for questions.
One of the things I'd like to sort of promote to our listeners is the fact that on June 18th, we will be holding a conference at the Lodge at Welch Allen about university industry partnerships. And I wonder if you might have something that you could say about how the STTR program works, how those, what you see as ideal ways for people either in universities to partner with industry or vice versa, things that you might have seen that have been particularly successful in creating those relationships.
Typically when a university has an expertise in an area, it's very much early stage technology. And if it's a platform technology, it may be able to be applied in a variety of different ways, especially if we think about an IT idea, for example. And it may be able to be applied in healthcare, it may be able to be applied in military. So the university researcher in partnership with the company can be a very strong partnership. The company often will have core competencies, but may not have that knowledge of the early stage basic research and development, or may not have ideas for how to create an innovation because they're not out there conducting the research. But one also has to remember that they're coming from two separate cultures and thinking about how do you get that communication across those two environments. Also, there are different incentives. Companies are looking at getting the product out there very quickly. University researchers want to prepare publications. And so you have to be respectful of the other's requirements and motivation, but it is a very strong and powerful combination when you take a university researcher and partner it with a company. NIH, 80% of all of the SBIRs that are funded through the NIH, National Institutes of Health, have a university company partnership.
And another question here is, with respect to government rights and IP developed under STTR funding, what FAR or DFARs clauses must be considered in drafting the allocation of IP rights? Must by-dole margin rights be considered? Which FAR, DFAR clauses are negotiable and which are required?
All right, considering that the FAR itself is about 8 inches thick, I'm not exactly prepared to recite which clauses. I do know that, well, DFAR is specifically the defense aspect of that, but it's broken up into sections. And at a recent NIH SBIR STTR conference, the suggestion was made that you put together a spreadsheet for yourself, and when you have finished reading a section of the FAR or the DFAR, make note of that section and how it may apply to you. There will be many sections that don't apply to you, but it's basically working through and understanding all about federal procurement. Some of those things I can help you with. I mean, it would take a long time. I mean, I would have to have the document in front of me, and it would be a very boring webcast.
Okay, we have, let's see, we just have a comment here that by-dole would definitely apply in that situation, perhaps relating to that the presumption would be that the IP would be with the developer and the university, unless there was some reason that the government already had it.
Well, if the technology that was developed by the university that would be subject to the by-dole was, if there was anything having to do with security clearance or some international threats or areas basically having to do with security, then those things, the government wouldn't let that information to go overseas, would not let ITAR, the international trade group, would have to provide export licenses for anything that is going to be going overseas. So you have to think about, what is the technology? Are there security issues? So by-dole, yes, the university is able to commercialize the technology, but again, you have to do it in line with, some of the requirements for the technology that are coming from the federal government.
Okay. Well, I think that will conclude our webcast, and thank you very much, Marcie. We really appreciate your being here.
Okay.
And this will be posted on the events section of the NYS STLC website within about a week. And we have a thank you here and a great job also.
All right.
So
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.
Okay.